This is former WWE superstar Gene Snitsky, and you better turn into another wrestling podcast, because if not, I will find you, I will turn it on for you, and I may even break your finger in the process. And you know what? It's not my fault.
It's time for another wrestling podcast.
Are you ready to beat the man? You have to beat the man. The champ is here. If you're the man, give me a hell yeah. What the Rock is cooking. Woo. Yes! Woo. Yes! Woo, woo, woo. What you gonna do when Hulkamania destroys you? For the benefit of those with flash photography, would you please shut the hell up? Oh, yes! Ooh, yeah! That was what was best for business. The kid to dig that sucker! And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so. Have a nice day!
With your hosts, Steve Credo and Jonathan Benjamin.
Welcome, everybody, to another wrestling podcast. I'm Jonathan Benjamin.
And I'm Steve Credo.
Steve, we are just one episode away from our historic 50th episode.
Wow, 50 episodes, Jonathan. I mean, wow. What else could we do next week for 50 episodes, then have a huge guest to announce coming to the studio next week for episode 50?
Well, that's right. We have a huge guest, but before we even get to that, you guys deserve a big guest for this show as well, and we have none other than Gene Snitsky on today's show.
Wow. Gene will be stopping by in a little bit, and can't wait to speak to him. But Jonathan, there have been many characters over the years in the world of pro wrestling. We've had clowns, we've had trash men, we even had half men, half horses. But today's show isn't about that, Jonathan. Today, we're going to be talking about the things that go bump in the night.
So be sure to plug in your night lights, kids, because another wrestling podcast is about to get scary.
But Jonathan, before we get to the scary stuff, I do want to remind everybody that we have our own hotline out there. For everybody listening right now, if you hop on your phones and dial 802-297-7672, that's 802-AWP-7672. You can leave us comments, you can leave us questions, you can leave us concerns, you can leave us anything you guys want. We'll play it on the show. The best calls will be played on the show. This week, we have a caller, and let's get to it.
What's going on, guys? Credo JB. This is Angry Cooter, social assassin of the mark here. I got an interesting question for you guys this week. The wrestling business has been full of psychos, big vicious, guys like Snitsky. Who is your favorite and most memorable psycho in the history of the wrestling business? You better not say Angry Cooter. I'll slap the shit out of you. Bye, guys.
All right, Jonathan. So Angry Cooter asks, do we have any favorite or most memorable psychos in the business? Does anybody stand out for you?
That's a very good question. We want to thank Angry Cooter for calling in, and this is exactly what we're talking about, people. We are a podcast for you. I'm stalling for time, Credo, because I'm on the spot right now. But no, in all seriousness, when I think psycho, I'm thinking somebody that has never had that moniker, but I'm thinking Scott Steiner is what I'm thinking of as a psycho. So he's just one of those guys. He's unhinged. He's a wrestler, and he's been a decent wrestler. He's got some great accolades, collegiate athlete, but he's just a crazy person. And I hope that qualifies for a psycho, but I'm thinking, in my heart of hearts, the biggest psycho in professional wrestling history has got to be Scotty Steiner.
Wow. Well, thanks again for the call, Angry Cooter. But My favorite Psycho, Jonathan, would be none other than flying Brian Pillman, baby. Well, he wasn't really flying by the time I liked him, but he led a pretty crazy wrestling career. He was part of the New Heart Foundation, so I know there's no surprise there that I would like him, Jonathan. But I mean, Brian Pillman, man, rest his soul. God rest his soul. He left us too soon, but I mean, I could only imagine what he could have done if he was around longer. And I mean, he had a great tag team with Steve Austin, but then when he came back into the WWE and after, ECW, a little stint in there, just playing crazy. This man, he defined crazy. You think you like Dean Ambrose today? Well, Brian Pillman wrote the book for Dean Ambrose pretty much. So, Brian Pillman would definitely be in my book as the number one crazy man, psycho, that I loved. And, I only wish we could have seen more, Jonathan.
Yeah, he was the loose cannon. He was a great superstar, great personality. I think that he would have been able to be at the Performance Center or any school in the world to teach promos 101. So he's definitely missed, and he is definitely a psycho. That is for sure. Steve, we started to talk about wrestlers and scary wrestlers, psychos, crazy wrestlers. Do you ever remember, as a little wrestling fan out there, or even a big wrestling fan out there, do you remember a wrestler legitimately scaring you growing up?
Legitimately scaring me? I would have to say probably Papa Shango.
You big baby.
Hey, come on now. Don't laugh. Certain things can scare you at a certain age, and I mean, Papa Shango was one of them. I mean, he was a head shrinker. He was the big bad voodoo daddy. Has anybody ever called him that, or am I the first one to coin that?
I think you may be the first and last. I hope that you throw up green stuff tonight. I hope he puts a curse on you.
Oh man, but I mean, taking his character, if you're looking at it today, it's kind of like, haha, whatever. But as a little youngin, as a little Mark, watching this, he did some scary stuff. He's walking around with shrunken heads and doing all this voodoo stuff, so it was kind of scary. I don't know. What do you think?
I'll tell you right now that I spoke with the gentleman who portrayed Papa Shango, and he told me that was his least favorite character because he really didn't like scaring kids. And at that point in his career, it was very real. I remember the music. I mean, and most of my cultural identities came from professional wrestling at that time. I grew up in the Midwest. There was obviously no voodoo people there. There were no crazy gimmicks like with The Undertaker. So I learned everything I knew about voodoo from Papa Shango. So it was very scary. I will give him that. The face paint, he obviously could set people's boots on fire. He was just a larger than life character. And obviously I was not scared of this gentleman, but it was very creepy to me.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, guys, if you're listening out there, guys and girls and children of all ages, if you're listening, to let us know, because we're going to be talking about some of the few scary wrestlers today. We might miss some. Who knows? We might leave some out. But if you're listening, Jonathan, how can they interact with us? Because we want to hear from them too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we are here for. We want to hear what you guys have to say. So if, let's just say, for instance, you're saying, man, I have a scary wrestler, a wrestler that scared me. What you can do is you can talk to us on Facebook. You can like us on Facebook. You can also tweet us at A Wrestling Pod. You can tell us on there. We like to tell everybody that they should go to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com. It has all of our links on there. It tells you where you can find us, where we're going to be soon. So that's basically the best place to find us and interact with us.
Well, that's right, guys. So, as we're reading along right now, just, feel free to hop on there and let us know what you think. But, Jonathan, I think I found something that, I think you might be afraid of.
Yeah, right. I'm not afraid of anything.
Well, how about this?
I'm the boogeyman.
Hey.
Coming to get you.
Let's just cut it back, all right? Okay.
You asked for it, Jonathan.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Listen, this guy is very frightening to me. I looked under my bed for several weeks after he made his debut. and I was a grown man at the time, so I am frightened of the boogeyman. And I've met him before. He seems like a very nice gentleman, but once he puts that face paint on, starts eating the worms, and starts gyrating all over the place, it's a little much for me.
Well, he definitely was like the Papa Shango 2.0 or 3.0. It was almost similar, but not. But it was definitely something crazy. If I was a wrestler, I don't think I would want to get in the ring with him. You know what I mean? He definitely had that scare tactics working for him. So he was pretty badass, eating the worms and all that crap, man. I don't know.
Here's a true story. I was in Evansville, Indiana, at the Roberts Stadium. It was a SmackDown ECW house show, and Boogeyman came out and had his pouch of worms. He goes to take the worms. He starts to put them in his mouth, and then he starts throwing his arms in the air and flinging them. And I'm sitting second row ringside, and so a worm lands like at my foot, and I pick it up, and those sick people in the crowd start chanting, "Eat the worm, eat the worm." And I acted like I was going to, but I did not eat the worm. And needless to say, this is why professional wrestling gives us so many memories, because I never thought in my wildest days that I would have held one of Boogeyman's worms and would have been getting taunted to eat it. But there you have it.
That's right. And like a lot of these guys that we're going to be talking about, it's more than wrestling, you know what I mean? That's where the E comes into WWE, at least, the entertainment aspect. And, the whole the characters that these guys and gals portray, has a lot to do with their performance, you know what I mean? They can just walk to the ring and do nothing and come to the ring. But I mean, some of these guys, their entrances were the show. Their garb, I'm going to call it, their attire, what these guys wore, just made the character. And honestly, they didn't have to put on a great wrestling match. They didn't need to do a figure four or some amazing aerial assault. It was just being scary was pretty much, the character itself. And that's what pretty much, got a lot of these guys over.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, from the beginning of time till now, I mean, that's what people are legitimately afraid of. That's why scary movies are constantly being put out there. They're testing what people are afraid of. And with wrestling, it's the same thing. I mean, from the very beginnings of professional wrestling, you had good guys and you had bad guys, but then they started to kind of make some of these guys scarier. You've had Abdullah the Butcher. You've had some, all of these guys were meant to strike fear. Cactus Jack. I mean, any of these guys were supposed to be frightening. Vader, Mankind. I mean, we're going to talk about a lot of them today, but these are ones that definitely stuck out to us, I guess. And speaking of scary wrestlers, we have none other than Gene Snitsky standing by. So I am looking forward to talking to this person, but Steve, if it gets a little frightening, then I may have to duck out for a little bit, because I'm a little frightened, to be honest.
I just want to say that it's not my fault.
It wasn't my fault.
Today is a man who is the reason I still sleep with the lights on at night. He is a former NFL player, an actor, a pro wrestler, and Isaac Yankum's favorite patient. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Gene Snitsky.
What's up, fellas? How are you tonight?
We're doing good, Gene. Thanks for joining us today. How you doing, man? Everything's going good?
Good. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be on the show with you guys, and everything's going great. And that was a very nice introduction.
Awesome. All right, so 2014 was a big year for you in and outside of the wrestling ring. You have a couple of films under your belt. Any projects you are working on now that you can tell us about?
Yeah, I'm actually executive producing a horror movie at the moment called 100 Acres of Hell. We have the gentleman that created Zombie Strippers, Jay Lee, he is the basically he and I worked on a project down in Texas together, became really good friends, and I had this idea for this horror movie for a while, and I was like, oh, well, I'll run it by him, see what he thinks. And he was like, oh, it's great, I love it, let me write a screenplay for it. So sent him off my synopsis, and he developed a screenplay for it, and we shot a trailer for it last fall. That's going to be debuting soon. And he wrote the screenplay, like I said. He's directing it and editing it as well. And I'm the male lead. And it's kind of true to life, you know, some stuff that happened in my life over the years. And, you know, the guy, the male lead, the character's name's Buck Severs. That's my character. And basically I got, you know, hurt in the ring, you know, depressed, down on my luck kind of thing. And my buddies want to take me out, cheer me up, you know, get me back to be my old self. And in the process of that, you know, we end up at this old game preserve, you know, camping out, you know, blowing shit up, shooting things, all that good stuff, drinking beers. And my buddies start getting killed off one by one by one. Make a long story short, comes down to me and the killer. And I have to kind of find that fighter in myself, you know, live or die situation. So, you know, do I fight the demons inside me and find the fighter I used to be, or do I just, you know, kind of cave in and, you know, end up getting killed? So,
awesome.
Kind of cool little story, yeah. Something different, you know. It's always a helpless little teenage girl or a babysitter or something. It's never a good formidable foe for the killer. So we figured let's add some, you know, real life wrestling to it, and, you know, all that good stuff. And the actual killer in the movie is the great Samu Anawai from the Wild Samoan family.
Sure. Nice.
Samoan. He plays the killer in it, and it's going to be awesome, man. Wait till you guys see the trailer. It's going to blow you away.
Definitely. Can't wait.
Now, Gene, you were actually acting prior to your start in wrestling. Now, do you think that your acting experience actually helped you kind of get your job in WWE, or at least help you in your career?
I mean, it's definitely a help. It's funny because I was just talking to a lady today, and she's like, well, I saw your stuff on the internet, and I'll tell you what, I was kind of scared. You're a scary guy. But then once I talked to you, you know, you're actually a big teddy bear. I was like, oh, gee, thanks. I kind of take that as a compliment. Because, you know, you're creating that illusion of this psychopathic, you know, killer guy. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if people buy it, I'm doing my job. If they don't buy it, I'm not doing my job. So for me to be able to get that type of reaction out of people, it's always cool. Because then I know I'm doing my job good. So it's exciting.
Sure. Awesome.
Now, if Gene Snitsky got to work alongside any actor or actress, who would you choose?
You know, it's funny you ask because I was just watching Jimmy Kimmel last night, and Scarlett Johansson's legs were kind of drawing my attention. So I would have to say her. I'd like to work with her. And only if she's wearing a skirt.
Was it her legs or her feet?
Her legs.
Okay.
She did have open-toed shoes on there.
Okay. All right.
I noticed those things. I have a very keen eye, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Now, you're arguably most known for your time in wrestling, but you also had a very good football career prior to coming to WWE. You played for the NFL and the CFL. What do you think about the current state of the NFL? I don't know. I kind of feel like they're getting away from what the NFL used to be. It's a little more protected, I guess I want to say. What are your thoughts?
It's on the verge of becoming flag football. You can't do anything. I mean, you can't. I don't know. It's tough to watch, to be honest with you. The referees have so much control over the outcome of the game these days, and then they have the replays, and they have this and that. And it's like, you know, you can't touch the quarterback. You can't do this. You can't do that. I mean, they have a uniform on with a helmet just like everybody else. It's definitely a changing game, and I know why they do it. But I think from a fan's perspective and a true football fan that's played football, I kind of don't like it. I like to see the guys go out there and just, you know, play hard and, you know, obviously not play dirty, but I still want to be able to see a linebacker come up and crush a guy that's waiting to catch the ball and not get a 15-yard unsportsmanlike penalty because they say he's rammed his head into him or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just getting ridiculous.
Sure. Now, being that you're from Pennsylvania, is your favorite team, safe to say, the Steelers?
No, the Eagles are my favorite team. I'm a diehard Eagles fan. All the Philadelphia sports teams I like.
All right.
Okay.
Andy Reid was actually my college football coach at Missouri. So when he was at Philly, I used to go down every year for camp and go down for a couple games. I still do. I know a few of the players, so I still go down, but it's not the same without Andy being there. But, it's still fun to go down and catch up with the guys and be on the field and see all that kind of stuff. Because I miss playing football. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I had a pretty good career. So, you get back down there, you're on the field, and they come out and, your adrenaline starts pumping. I want to run out there and hit somebody.
Now, you just mentioned coaches. Have you ever given any thought to actually coaching football?
I did actually coach football after college. After I got done playing pro, I had my shoulder operated on, and I actually coached one of the local high schools here where I live in Pennsylvania. So I did do a little coaching, and I'm proud to say that I am the only guy that I know of that played on a championship team and coached a championship team at the same high school, at Panther Valley High School in Panther. That's where I graduated from. So I got to go back and coach there, and we won the championship while I was coaching there, and I played on the first championship team in the history of Panther Valley High School, so it's kind of cool.
Nice. Now, obviously, we have to talk some wrestling. When you first got into sports entertainment, did you have any goals in mind that you wanted to accomplish, or, did you just want to take wrestling on full steam ahead, kind of?
Well, as a kid, I always enjoyed watching it, and I knew that someday I was going to get into it. I just knew it was going to happen. But my goal was just to make it to WWE. I mean, if you're a wrestler, your goal, if you're serious about it, it has to be to get to WWE. I mean, I didn't want to be wrestling in front of 50 people at the local flea market. You know what I'm saying? I got into it to be, to get to the top, and I never rode the bench in any sport I ever played. So I always wanted to be the best. I always strived to be the best. So I always strive to get to WWE because they're the best. And, luckily enough, I was fortunate to get there and have a good career. And, 10 years later, people are still talking about all the crazy stuff I did. And it's pretty cool. I'm still doing interviews with guys like you.
That's right. Well, not only did you, achieve your goal of getting to WWE, but you absolutely thrived there. You even got to be in a WrestleMania, which is something that not everybody can say. What was your experience like competing at WrestleMania 21? I've played football in front of 100,000 people, but walking out in front of that same amount of people at WrestleMania, it's just such a different feeling because all the people are just looking right at you. When you're out on the football field, there's 21 other guys out there besides yourself, so it's not as isolated. You're not as isolated to the crowd. So, both are really super cool. And if you have the opportunity to do either one, I highly recommend you do it. but it's a feeling I really can't equate to anything else. You know what I mean? It's crazy. Like your adrenaline is just so I don't know. I was always the type of person that I really got into my character, and I used to get so pumped up and become that character. So when there's that many people just, bullying you or, yelling at you when you come out, there's nothing you really could equate to it.
All right. Now, speaking of wrestling and WrestleMania, there's a ton of shows now each week for wrestling, from, Raw to NXT to Impact to Lucha Underground, countless others. What is Gene Snitsky currently watching these days? Do you happen to watch any of these shows, Gene, or do you just watch football mostly?
I hate to say it, but I don't really watch too much sports on TV. I'll follow the Eagles. I'll follow Missouri Tigers because I played at Mizzou. Excuse me. I follow, little baseball here and there. But, I'm not one to go home I'm like rushed to turn on a sporting event. I don't know, just
Sure.
I guess it's just my type A personality. If I'm not doing it, it's hard for me to sit and watch it.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Like I'm more, like even when I go to sporting events now, like I have some friends that play for the Lehigh Valley Phantoms in hockey, and I'll go down to the games and I'll end up socializing more than I watch the game. I'll walk around, I'll talk to people, I'll go down in the back, I'll putz around with the employees, stuff like that. I'll probably watch 5 minutes of the game, and the rest of the time I'm socializing. So I'm not one to just sit and watch a game.
Sure.
Of any sort, of any type of thing. Even at concerts. If I go to concerts, I'm like, I'll listen to a couple songs, I'll walk around, I'll, listen to a couple more songs, smoke a cigar, go, Like, I never stay in one place too long. I'm very antsy.
Sure.
Okay. Now, that kind of answers this question, too, but obviously the WWE Network's a big deal now, and everybody's talking about it, and it's given new life into other people's careers. But being that you're an actor, do you think that this could kind of help open up the door for other people to star in like WWE productions?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. Is their film division even doing anything right now? They don't really. I mean, they did Marine 4 and it went straight to DVD. It's not even out. You know what I mean? It's not even out in the movie theaters. So is it really helping anybody? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's great to be able to do a WWE film. I wouldn't pass one up if they asked me.
Yeah.
But I mean, to me, the objective of doing a film is to get it out in all the theaters, have a grand open. What the hell? What's the word I'm thinking of?
Like a premiere.
Premiere. That was it. You have your big premiere, you go to the movie theater, all that stuff. To just do a movie and throw it right out on DVD kind of takes all the fun away from it to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Kind of defeats the purpose.
Now, Gene, are there any wrestlers that stand out to you currently, whether it be in the indie scene or, I don't know, if you ever catch Raw or anything like that? Is there anybody that, names that just stand out to you? Or?
Not really. Like I said, I don't really follow the show too much.
Okay.
If I'll DVR it, and if I see any of my buddies wrestling, I'll probably stop and watch it. But as far as like the new guys, nobody's really catching my eye. Like nobody does it for me, to be honest with you. Like I don't know.
Sure.
I like the older style with the characters and the larger than life guys and the big animated characters. Like there's nobody like that now. You know what I mean? It's like. It doesn't excite me. I want to see somebody that, stands out. It's imposing. They look the part. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's just my preference. That's the era I came up in. As a kid, I enjoyed like Hulk Hogan, Undertaker, like all the larger than life guys. Like the guys these days are like just guys.
Yep.
I mean, that's just my opinion.
Sure.
Now, as a big man in the wrestling business, who do you consider the greatest big man of all time?
Well, I mean, that's pretty easy to answer. Undertaker, obviously. He's been there 22 years. 21-1 in WrestleMania. That's a no-brainer right there.
Okay.
Now, Gene, if you had a choice, though, to wrestle for any era or decade, would you choose the one that you were in? Would you go back in time a little bit? Or is there anything that you wish you could have done, or were you fine where you were?
I would have loved to have been like in the 80s, I think.
Yeah.
That seems like when wrestling was really at its peak. You know what I mean? Like, Hulk Hogan was kind of like the breakout guy. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. He was in Rocky III. It was kind of like the coming of age for WWE, and all the guys were, like I said, big, larger-than-life characters. You had all these cool, outfits and all that. Like, everybody had a real cool outfit, and it was colorful, and it was fun. Like now it's like a guy's wrestling in boots and a T-shirt, and it's like,
yep.
I don't know, it just doesn't excite me.
Sure.
Good. Well, speaking of like being character driven. While you were in the WWE, you had two very different characters that you portrayed. Which was your favorite of the two?
Oh, that's a tough question because I loved all the stuff I did there. I mean, that's like comparing apples and oranges. It's tough to really compare the two. I mean, they were both equally as fun. I wish they would have ran more with the ECW version of WWE because I thought that had a lot of potential. I don't think they did it as good as they could have because there was like Lashley was there, I was there, Bob Holly, CM Punk. I mean, we had a good core of guys, and I can't really put my finger on what happened.
Yeah.
I think that if it was called anything other than ECW, that it would have went a lot better. But everybody had certain expectations whenever you said ECW, and I mean, I agree with you. I think that because Kurt Angle was down there, I mean, I think that it was. I really liked that time, but yeah, I don't know really what happened either.
Yeah, because that thing we did at the Hammerstein Ballroom was awesome, man. That was there was so much energy and raw, passion in that building that night. It was crazy. It was like just walking into a bee's nest, man. It was crazy. I'll never forget it. It was awesome. We had Raw, SmackDown, ECW, and they had all, the different factions there. And it was like standing room only. It was crazy. The atmosphere was just crazy. That was probably the best wrestling show I've ever been involved in. That was just crazy.
Now, you spent a lot of time in the WWE, but like any job, we all have a complaint about our job somewhere down the line. But if you had one complaint about your time there, is there anything that stands out you just would love to get off your chest?
No, I don't have any complaints. I just, towards the end of my run, it was one of those things where I wasn't really happy with the direction of my character. And I was, kind of going back and forth with the powers that be. And it kind of ultimately came down to me telling Vince, I was like, hey, I don't want to be here just collecting a paycheck. If I'm not going to be on the starting team, I'd rather not be here. Yeah. And that's what I told him. So it's just not my style, man. I don't want to just be another guy.
Sure.
If I'm doing something, I want to be the best at it. And if I'm just going to be sitting around and you're not going to, give me the opportunity to carry the ball, then I don't want to be there. Because all the shit they gave me, I ran with it, and I made it into something. I mean, who the hell else could take a kick in a baby doll and making it into the top thing in wrestling?
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Now, on the opposite side of that, what is the greatest thing that's come to you from your career in professional wrestling?
There's so many great things that have come from it. I can't really pinpoint one, but the coolest thing to me, is still going places and people yelling, "Hey, Snitsky, it's not my fault." I get it every single day of my life. It's crazy.
All right. Now, outside of acting and wrestling, do you have any hobbies or passions that you love to tell us about?
Well, I have a personal training business that I'm doing right now, and that's, pretty much occupies most of my time, besides the acting projects and stuff. So that's, always fun helping people attain their fitness goals and stuff like that. And if I'm not at the gym helping people, I'm obviously at the gym working out. And I like to spend time at home with my wife and my dog. And I have a Great Dane. He's awesome. Nice. He's like another person. He's like a little man. He's got such a personality. It's funny. He cracks me up. But just spend a lot of time with my wife, Deanne, and the dog, Maximus, my buddy. So, yeah.
Well, it
occupies most of my time right now.
It sounds like you're living the dream. Now, a little bit different than wrestling. A lot of talk over the years about MMA. Are you a fan of MMA? And what are your thoughts about CM Punk now going over to the world of MMA?
I'm a fan of all the sports. Like I said, I could respect the preparation that goes into all the professional sports. And, I don't knock anybody for trying anything because you don't know till you try. Mm-hmm. So, I wish him the best. He's not a bad guy. I got along with him pretty good. And, I have a friend that actually fights the UFC. Ryan Jimmo out of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
He's a buddy of mine, so I've trained with him a couple of times, and I mean it's tough. Any type of professional level sport, the training is going to be tough. I mean that's a given. That's why athletes are so revered, because normal people can't really do it, and it's only a certain percentage of the world that can say, "Hey, I'm a professional athlete." You know what I mean? So, yeah, okay. I mean, he's gonna have a tough time, but I've learned over the years never say never in anything. Anything could happen at any time. You just never know. So, but I wish him the best. I mean, I hope he doesn't get crushed. I hope he does. I hope he holds his own at least.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can't knock anybody for trying anything, because, like I said, you don't know till you try. So.
Absolutely. Now, typically in our show, this is the time when we do what we like to call the lightning round. We had to change it a little bit differently because it's Gene Snitsky. So today's is a little different. It's going to be called the lightning round and whose fault was it? So we're going to give you a list of scenarios or events that have happened in history, and you have to tell us whose fault it was, okay?
I'll try.
Lightning round.
The sinking of the Titanic.
Well, it was definitely not my fault.
Lita's miscarriage.
Definitely not my fault.
Global warming.
Al Gore's fault.
The Shockmaster falling at Clash of the Champions.
I would have to go with it's not my fault.
Brock Lesnar breaking The Undertaker's undefeated streak.
Probably the worst part of wrestling history. So that's not my fault either.
Well, we before we go, you are definitely all over social media, as we are. So where can fans keep up with you today?
I'm on Instagram and Twitter mostly. I kind of only use Facebook for people that are family or friends.
Okay.
So you can check me out on Instagram at The Real Snitsky. And my Twitter is at Big Gene Snitsky, Biggene. There's 2 G's there, Snitsky. So hit me up on one of those guys. I'll be more than happy to chat. I always try to respond to every single fan that contacts me. So I'm not one of those kind of guys that won't talk to you or any of that kind of crap. Because if it wasn't for the fans, there'd be no Snitsky. So I'm not like certain people that never ever interact with their fans. So.
Sure. All right, Gene, I know we barely scratched the surface with you today. We appreciate your time and talking with us tonight. Those thanks for coming on.
Well, like I said, thanks for having me. And any friend of John Trosky's is a friend of mine, so you guys keep up the good work. And I look forward to being back on the show when the trailer drops, and we'll have a little shindig concerning the 100 Acres of Hell horror movie premiere. Also, speaking of which, check out the 100 Acres of Hell on Twitter. I'm not sure. I think the guys have it up now. So check out at 100 Acres of Hell, I believe it is on Twitter.
All right. Well,
if you can't find it, just message me on Instagram or Twitter, and I'll make sure that I find it for you guys. But it's going to be super, super cool, and I think all true horror movie fans are going to love it. And I think it's going to be a surprise hit, and hopefully everybody else enjoys it as much as I do. If we can't find it on Twitter, whose fault is that? It's not your fault. Okay. I'm hilarious. Didn't see that one coming a mile away.
All right, guys, thanks again to Gene Snitsky. Once again, guys, listening, let us know what you thought. AnotherWrestlingPodcast.com. Check out our links, leave us some feedback, and tell Gene what you thought. But Jonathan, moving right along to even scarier wrestlers, one guy we can't not talk about is, the devil's favorite demon, one of the long-lasting wrestlers, one of the guys who's still active today, Kane. He's lost his mask though, Jonathan. He's not as scary anymore. But when he debuted, man, he was a giant, ripped. You know, he was a big dude. He's still a big dude, but I mean, you know, he was a lot scarier back then than he is today. But what did you think about Kane when he came around?
Well, it was very fitting because at that point I felt like Undertaker had started to, I don't want to say grow stale, but there was really nobody there that I thought would really be able to beat Undertaker. He had been fighting Stone Cold, he'd been fighting The Rock, he'd been fighting, you know, it was around the Attitude Era, Shawn Michaels, those people. And, you know, this was great to bring Kane in. And to be honest, it was all about you mentioned it earlier, it was all about the E in entertainment. And they had the special lighting, the red lighting when he would come out. He was with Paul Bearer, which added another, you know, layer to his character. But he was huge, he had that mask on, and he was very creepy. The music was really great too, and he had the pyro. So it was a perfect match for Undertaker, and then they gave us some great backstory. So Kane is awesome. I think that there's been a lot of times that he's been underutilized, and I would like to see him have one more run and put the mask back on.
He could even come out with the See No Evil mask and put that on, man, because that's even creepy too. Like, he doesn't need a fake wig. He doesn't need a wig with the mask. I think the mask alone will look cool. You know, I don't know. It looks scary, but I don't know. I would love to see the mask return. I think it completes Kane as a character. And, you know, if he's going to retire any day soon, if he's going to be hanging up those boots, I'd like to see him go out as, like I said, the devil's favorite demon. So hopefully, you know, Kane is definitely one of those top 5 guys of scary characters, Jonathan, right?
Yeah, and that's what's, you know, great about wrestling is that you can look at some of these guys, and some of these wrestlers are totally something that you would never think about. Obviously, we spoke about Kane. There's not too many guys that you could, you know, just walk down an alley and see like that. But there are some guys in professional wrestling that have just looked normal, but their character is very creepy. Do you have any of those people that you can think of? Just
the real creepy ones?
Well, like people that it's almost like they're real people. They're not wearing masks or anything like that. If you were in like a southern area in the United States, that you may come across somebody like this.
He couldn't feed it to me more apparently, kids. He couldn't make it more clear than this, but definitely, Jonathan, the new age, the new face of fear, the Wyatt, and I'm saying the Wyatts as a whole before they even split. You know, 2 monsters and Luke Harper and Eric Rowan, and even just Bray Wyatt being completely transformed from his old gimmick. I don't think I haven't seen that in years, to where one guy just did, you know, a complete 360 from one character to another character in such a fast time period. But, you know, the Wyatts, I would think, were the new age of scary. And they were, I mean, I don't know, they're still... Bray Wyatt's still scary, you know. He's still doing those creepy promos, you know. He doesn't need a mask or anything, but you know, they're the new age, I guess. Yeah, as I'm trying to point out. I like what they've done, but I think they really need to be a group to be still be scary. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that what you had with the Wyatts when they came in, they did all those vignettes, and it was almost like Bray Wyatt was a cult leader, and he had those 2 guys under the spell. The lamb mask in the beginning was pretty creepy, but then it just kind of went, now it has no effect at all. But I think this is what's needed in professional wrestling. These real life situations that are kind of with a touch of, you know, make believe. The fact that he was wrestling Dean Ambrose or whatever, he was in a feud with Dean Ambrose, and there was like mist, and he was like a hologram in there, so it kind of gave it like a supernatural feel. But the realness to this angle and to the Wyatts is just something that I think wrestling was missing, and they were great. I really think that they could have gotten more members. I mean, I'm not talking NWO members, like the amount, but, you know, 4 or 5 Wyatts would have been probably pretty cool. They kept talking about Sister Abigail, so I thought that they were going to actually bring in somebody for that. But I love the Wyatts, and a lot of people don't get the Wyatts, I don't think, but because they are more gimmick-based these days. But I think that they're creepy and just the right amount of scary.
Sure. And what are your thoughts on this? Because we talked a lot of guys. Let's talk some girls who are scary. Well, especially one girl, one lady who I always loved. I just loved her character. She was nuts. She was scary. She's definitely not a girl you want to take home for your mom. She's definitely a girl you don't really even dare to kiss. But Luna Vachon, Jonathan. Do you remember Luna?
Oh, I remember her. Great. I would have swore when I was younger that the tattoo-looking thing on the side of her head was real. Yeah. I really thought those veins were real. And, the last name Vachon, that just tells you how crazy. I mean, you have Mad Dog Vachon, the whole Vachon lineage, and anybody that's called themselves a Vachon has to be kind of crazy. And she had that like really gravelly, raspy voice, and I encourage any of you to go out there, even if you're familiar with Luna, just get on the internet and look up a Luna Vachon YouTube clip and listen to her voice, and it was amazing. And then fast forward, she was in The Oddities, so she was kind of fun-loving as well, but Luna Vachon in her prime was very, very scary.
Yeah, and like I said, she was a decent wrestler too. I mean, I don't think she ever held the WWE Women's Championship. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. She was like in the wrong place at the wrong time, to where I would have loved to see her, now, like a Luna Vachon now mingling with the divas. It would have definitely been different. She's definitely not a cookie cutter a woman. She had her own style, and she's definitely scary, because I remember every time seeing her, I just definitely was like, I don't know what to do with this. So
yeah, and her, I don't know if they were married. I think that they were. I think they were at least dating. I don't know if they were ever married, but Gangrel is another person that whenever they first came out, Gangrel was like a vampire, and this was prior to Twilight ruining the whole vampire thing. And Gangrel would come out in that Ring of Fire. The music was just unbelievable for the Brood, and I don't think it was so much scary as it was just like, holy crap, this is something new, different. It's kind of like what you felt when the Wyatts first came out. And then the thing that got me the most, I don't think it was anything that they did until they started doing those bloodbaths. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. The whole thing, even drinking the blood, spitting it out, it was just like, I definitely didn't want to be ringside for those moments, but they were definitely doing something new. I know there was a lot of people that tried doing different vampire gimmicks with, dark gimmicks like that, but I think Gangrel and the Brood, they really pulled it off, and they really made a name for themselves. I mean, look who came out of that. Edge and Christian pretty much launched their careers. Not so much for Gangrel, but he was still on the top for a while when he debuted. But I mean, you can only go so far as being a vampire guy, for so long. So
yeah, and I guess for me it was always less is more. Really, if you looked at Gangrel, it was all about the story, because if you looked at him, he had vampire teeth in, and that was about it. Like, he didn't need a mask or anything, so he was just a creepy guy in general. And once again, this really didn't work for me because I was a huge fan of him as a kid, but I could see where a lot of people would be freaked out by Jake Roberts as a scary wrestler. Now, not so much Jake, but the Snake is also a huge part of the gimmick, and a lot of people are frightened of snakes. And I think that whenever he had the Cobra, that was probably one of the worst parts of the whole Jake the Snake gimmick, because it latched on to Macho Man, and I don't think any of us were the same after that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember what episode we had it. Maybe it was our Halloween episode where we talked, just scary things in pro wrestling, where we didn't talk about gimmicks as much. like we are today. But I think one of those things that I mentioned was, the whole Jake the Snake with the Cobra, or was it the Cobra that bit Macho Man, or no, that drew blood on TV? Oh my gosh, talk about a loss of innocence right there, kids. I mean, you're watching this as a little kid, expecting to see wrestling, and now comes a guy with a snake, tying up the Macho Man in the ropes and putting the snake on the Macho Man's arm, and just blood dripping down his arm. I'm like, Mom, am I still watching wrestling? What is this? And it was, it's one of those life-changing moments. Like, you're like, this is real. Like, if you had a doubt about whether it was real or not, when you saw, like, this guy force-feeding his snake to bite somebody, you were like, okay, it was pretty scary. It's a scary moment, especially when you're doing stuff like that. And there's a lot of people legitimately afraid of snakes, have fear of snakes. And could you imagine if you were a wrestler that had this fear and like, oh great, tonight you're fighting Jake the Snake Roberts? What do you tell him before the match? Do you tell him, hey man, I know the snake's your gimmick, but don't bring him out tonight, okay? Could you imagine? I wonder if anybody, that's a good question to probably ask, if, any wrestler really had a legitimate, a fear of snakes that had to wrestle Jake the Snake Roberts.
Well, I mean, they played that whole thing up with Andre, and I can't imagine Andre the Giant being afraid of anything, but, like anytime Jake threw that in the ring, it freaked him out. And the same thing with Earthquake, because like Earthquake ended up squashing his snake because he was afraid of it. But I would assume you're right. I would assume that there's somebody in the WWE or WCW or independent or wherever he fought that was frightened of snakes, and they probably threw him to Jake just to watch it, just as a rib or whatever. So, Jake, like I said, as a child, I loved him, but as he got a little bit darker, that's when I was just getting to the point where I was kind of confused about how wrestling worked. And then to see something like what you're saying, it was very, very scary.
That's it, man. And, speaking of, like real life scary and how it all mixed with the real world, if we could back to the future, Zeus. Zeus was a guy coming from a movie, coming from TV, and I think this was probably one of the greatest uses of an actor coming into pro wrestling, because when Zeus debuted, everybody knew him from No Holds Barred. So him coming in, you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe he's not an actor. Maybe he really is this badass Zeus guy. Maybe he really is this, legitimately scary dude. And so that's the thing where you had your head scratching to where, like, what was what was reality, what was fake, what was, you know what I mean? To where they always had you guessing back in the 80s, because when you saw Zeus on TV, you knew Hulk Hogan was a wrestler and he was acting. But when you saw Zeus, you're like, oh, he's an actor. But when they brought him in, man, like I said, I think it was a great moment for pro wrestling and the entertainment industry itself, because not only could he act, man, but he still wrestled a little bit. He was on Survivor Series, SummerSlam, he had some matches, so... good for him, and he's still legitimately scary. I think he threatened us on, I forget what episode it was.
Yeah, he was absolutely frightening. I still wake up with cold sweats every now and then because of that. But if you think about that, and that was episode number 19, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to go back and hear our talk with Tiny Zeus Lister, that is episode 19. But whenever you watch that video, that movie, No Holds Barred, it kind of blurred that line. You're watching it, and like you said, you didn't know if he was an actor, you didn't know if he was a wrestler, but they did such a good job with that whole storyline that you just were scared. And he's such an imposing person anyway. To see that and to see him go against Hulk Hogan, it really, for me, up until that point, I hadn't really seen Hulk Hogan tested the way he was with Zeus. So I think that they could have really milked that for even more. But Zeus is a frightening man, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And Jonathan, I mean, we've talked a lot about different scary guys. We talked about some vampires, guys with snakes, guys from the South, boogeymen, head shrinkers. Hey, even head shrinkers are scary too, but you know what I mean? Papa Shango. But we talked a little bit here, a little bit there. I know we missed a lot of guys. I know we're still going to talk about some other guys. But guys, once again, got to reinstate this. Anotherwrestlingpodcast.com. Find all of our links on there. Let us know what you're thinking and who scared you as a kid. And hey, if you want to tell us, there's always the hotline, 802-AWP-7672. That's 802-297-7672. If you don't want to tweet, if you don't want to Facebook, pick up the damn phone and let us know. We'll play the best calls on the show. Jonathan, though, like I said, we talked a lot, but we did not talk about one of the greatest, one of the best scary men in the business, and that is The Undertaker.
The old saying, save the best for last. This is nothing more rings true than that right there. The Undertaker. Just to hear, I have to clarify, not the American Badass Undertaker, not the Ragin' Cajun Undertaker that we saw at WrestleMania 30, not, I'm going to say like late 2000s Undertaker. I'm going to say the debuting 1990 Undertaker and all the way up to like corporate ministry Undertaker, where he was like sacrificing Stone Cold Steve Austin on his symbol. Those were very frightening Undertakers. And to be completely honest, when he first came out, it was terrifying because not only was he so much bigger than all of the jobbers that he was beating and defeating, but he would put them in a freaking body bag after he was finished. So it added a little insult to injury, but at the end of the day, like I said, everything I knew about things in life, I learned from wrestling. And at that point, I am seeing an Undertaker and a mortician named Paul Bear, who's got like white skin and talks very weird, and body bags and coffins. And this is little kid stuff, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. It was very hard to comprehend. So Undertaker, by far the best scary performer in professional wrestling history.
Yeah, man. I mean, he was still going to this day, like Kane. Granted, it's one match a year, but just to keep that character, adapt with the times when he had to, and come back old school when the time was right. It's perfect. I mean, no other guy could do the eye roll like him. No other guy could sit up in the ring like he did. It was just great. It was great to see it evolve through the years, see his character just, come from, his name was actually Kane the Undertaker when he debuted, and then they kind of forgot that, and then he just became the Undertaker. But, one of the longest lasting gimmicks, probably the longest lasting gimmick in WWE history. So, that as soon as that gong hits, Jonathan, you knew who was coming out. You knew when the lights went out. It was the Undertaker. And granted, he may not be, I look at him, I'm afraid, but he had that scary appeal. One of the best scary gimmicks around. And hey, will there ever be another Undertaker, Jonathan? Would you think there could be another Undertaker? I mean, do you ever think they'll ever do something similar with anybody, or no?
I think that the Undertaker now is just like such an iconic thing. I think that they started to try to do that with Bray Wyatt, but there's really only one Undertaker, and I've said a lot of things about the Undertaker over the years, mostly positive, but there's been some times when I've just not been an Undertaker fan. But I cannot deny the awesomeness that is the Undertaker. He is just one of a kind. The eye roll in the back of the head, that's legendary. So I think that, like I said, the scariest character that there's ever been and probably ever will be in professional wrestling is the Undertaker. Hey, everybody, we just wanted to say thank you for listening today.
Each and every week, we create something for you to listen to, and it's absolutely free.
We are the Wrestling Fans Podcast because, after all, we are fans as well.
That's right, and help us out by subscribing to our shows on iTunes. While you're there, you can rate us and give us a good review.
If you're looking for any more AWP, then head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com to find out about upcoming guests and where we may pop up.
That's right, so be sure and like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, and buy an official AWP t-shirt from ProWrestlingTees.com/Another Wrestling Podcast.
We couldn't do this show without you, so tune in next week for
Another Wrestling Podcast.